Okay. No,
Go ahead.
Okay, you talk about gaining grounds.
Yes.
The military has broken into most of the strongholds and all of that. But we also have pockets of bomb blast here and there. Then the threats. Now the Federal Capital Territory is on the list. Even those of us who are in Lagos, we are not so sure, because if they can bomb Abuja, they can go to some other cities. You have Kano, you have Kaduna, Would you really call this gaining ground, or is it have they just been scattered and then they've been able to regroup and re-strategize and change their tactics?
You're on it, close to it. When it comes to armed engagements with soldiers and their combatants, we've gained some grounds. When it comes to bombings, it's still a bit spurious. And that's where order. I once spoke on a certain media, and I was talking about those similarities, those common threads of similitude that run through all the attacks. I've been to the market in Yanya after the bombing, okay? And I'm very conversant with Yanya in Abuja. It's a densely populated area. People who cannot afford to live in Abuja proper come to work from Yanya. So you see that place up to AYA, transport-wise, being very congested. One, when you go to Yanya, you see disorder. And anywhere you can think the Boko Haram have attacked and scored major casualties for us, there is always that ambience of disorderliness. We need to get ourselves ordered. In sync with that line of thinking, I actually was trying to see if we could bring about doing a blueprint for markets. There must be a threshold. There must be a blueprint for at least markets where you have more than 500 people at any given time. And the blueprint, the way we have drawn it with my team, is actually all-inclusive. We want to begin to see markets encouraged to have chief security officers. And chief security officers will be regulated by our agencies, as many of them as we have: police, SSS, civil defense. And where the chief security officer does not actually level up with the blueprint recommended, a regulatory audit can slam a security alert state on the market. So if we call Nigerians, for example, and the SSS out of concern says, based on security lapses in XYZ market, we are placing it on a yellow alert, the general public is here advised to actually think about going to do business there. It becomes all-inclusive because the stakeholders who pay for their shops in those markets will breathe down the necks of their security officers, who will either bring it to par or look for jobs elsewhere. That way someone is being responsible, someone is taking ownership of something. And it decomposes down to the last NURTW staff. You begin to see markets that are aligned on order. You begin to see markets that are aligned on safety. You begin to see markets that are aligned on security. Everybody will have to be accounted for as they come and go. But we don't have that now in the markets. So anybody can just walk in, park anywhere, drop anything anywhere.
That's frightening and pretty sad. If we're looking at this and you're talking about someone taking responsibility, one of the such is the alert we have received about Abuja. And if you know, they say to be forewarned is to be forearmed. And yep. you just told us that these are some of the things that are not present in our markets, in even some religious places. Did we drop the ball? Because we recall a couple of years then back, we saw churches and some mosques where they were able to frisk people before they get in there. But now they have turned towards the markets. And if you say we don't have that yet, looking at the kind of markets we have in the country, let's take Abuja for instance. What can we do in this situation now that we have seen that markets are usually hit in Abuja, in Kano? What should we be thinking of doing in our marketplaces and even motor parks?
Yes, as it is, we need to begin to see first aid measures, if you want to call it that, in the interim before we get on board or on radar. I would expect a situation where, having given that state of alert, the regulatory agencies should be able to come out with what I want to call go-to options. What are go-to options? Go-to options are those places that you can knock on now and get hints I want to see those beautiful female officers in the police and wherever become faces of public relations for the police that people can talk and call and talk to. They should be telling you, look, if you are going to the market, look out for this, look out for that. There are things I can actually gladly say here, but we don't even want to get the insurgent wiser. Okay? These things can actually even be read the same way the letter was circulated. I saw a copy. The tips can also be circulated and you push them to religious houses, heads of markets, and what have you. Other than the go-to options, we also have the see something, say something option. People see things and keep quiet. Not because they don't want to say, because they feel insecure to actually pass the information. So we need to have media where people can actually say something because they saw something. I see you show me clips of different spots in this country. You call it eyewitness?
Yeah.
Yeah. The police can have its own eyewitness. The SSS can have its own eyewitness.
So it becomes, sometimes it becomes anonymous.
Exactly.
So that,
exactly. It has to be anonymous because even if you said people should append their names, I could use someone's name, isn't it? So it's not about being anonymous. Even where you insist on having names, you can receive cold calls.
What about
hoaxes.
those who have felt like because they spoke up, they've been burnt? Should they be discouraged, or is there a way to encourage them to speak up more? I mean, the president was quoted as saying terrorism thrives and violent crimes thrive when the people keep quiet. So there are those who feel that I have spoken up and I've been burnt. Others feel I've given information that has not been used. Some other people say that I've given information and I've been held, I've been punished for even giving.
I know.
So how do you encourage those people to speak up in the face of this?
Yeah, that's a very dire situation to find yourself in. But let me take out the pain by sharing what a comedian they call Gordons used to say. He said, if you talk, you go die. If you not talk, you go die. So let's all talk and die. Anyway, what I'm simply trying to say is the fact that you spoke and you were burnt, shouldn't you discourage you from saying it if you know this thing is going to actually affect you? At least let us know that he said so. Okay? That in itself underscores the need to have those kind of portals I'm talking about. I don't have to go and drop something in a suggestion box. It's outdated. I see police suggestion boxes. I saw suggestion boxes being launched at the Senate, I believe. Those things don't work anymore. Not with the kind of generation we have, particularly Generation Y and Generation Z. But if somebody could sit anywhere on this planet and just pick his phone and do something, and you're going to get something, I think that's better. And for the law enforcement agencies, I want them to anticipate hoaxes and cold calls. Even the doers of damage in our country can actually send these calls or these messages to distract them. They could be deceptive. But then, depending on how key your intelligence is, your trend analysis too, you'll be able to know what is just speculation.
You know, in a situation like this, one wonders if they have been doing some kind of mock operations. How often, for instance, we're going back to your time during the Liberian Civil War, keeping peace in Liberia there. How often do the military go on their mock operations? Do they still carry out mock operations?
What do you mean by mock operations?
Simulated operations.
Drills. Okay, I understand what you're saying. For every situation, there must be some form of rehearsals. Okay, those rehearsals are actually what makes you get a feel of what the real thing will be like. And rehearsals are very interesting. But I don't know what they do about rehearsals, but for me, I do have my own concepts of rehearsals. I wrote one out. It was termed a little bit unwholesome then, but I didn't feel it was unwholesome. It was pre-economic summit last year. You know, there was an economic summit in Abuja, and we had Abuja shut down virtually, roads and what have you were cordoned. We lost man hours, we lost work hours, we lost, if you quantify that monetarily, you know that Abuja took a hit then. But I was feeling that, look, why couldn't we just 2 months, a month to that, go in there, set up a team, and do a mock attack on that particular venue? That was Sheraton now, I believe. Yeah. We just sit down, probably the four of us make up the team, and we task ourselves, 4 different teams, how can we actually successfully have a terrorist attack here? The reason is simple. Before you can do mock battle, you must enter the enemy's head and see what he's going to come and do to you. Then you build your scenario along that line and then see how they can repel it. They don't need to be done physically. It could be simulated. It could be on tables with chairs and maps and scenarios. That too is another option for actually getting a feel of what will happen. And if you do that, the moment it happens, you find that you contain it easily or you respond easily. Because the moment the incident occurs, the time between that and when you respond makes all the difference.
Okay, talking about speaking out, some say our government is in the habit of coming on national television, exposing a lot, putting out threats, like for instance, the issue of the deadline. And they believe this has been a major contributor to the reprisal attacks because the Boko Haram goes on a show of force. Let's see how the December deadline is going to work out. What do you think about this?
Whether you give a deadline or you don't give a deadline, those guys are in business. So some people can make excuses that because a deadline was given, the bombs became hotter. But it doesn't cut any ice with me anyway. The most important thing is, looking back, I want to believe that the deadline was imposed by the president to lend a degree of urgency to what needs to be done there. I want to believe the president actually placed the troops on their toes by drawing a line. It was an antithesis of the state of emergency, which was every 6 months you get another 6 months lease of life. That in itself, I believe, has driven the troop commanders to do things differently, because to see the kind of results we've seen, which are not the best yet, something was definitely done differently. Post this deadline, pre-deadline, we even had brigades were sacked. Those guys virtually threw a party in military locations and left. And hours later, help came. You all remember what happened in that brigade. You remember even as far as the villages, they actually had the time to jump into a school and slaughter students